In the haunting silence of the high desert, where the wind carries stories older than memory, the latest episode of Dark Winds delivers one of its most unsettling chapters yet. What begins as a routine extension of an ongoing investigation spirals into something far darker when Lieutenant Joe Leaphorn, Jim Chee, and Bernadette Manuelito uncover a grisly scene inside a remote Hogan, a traditional Navajo dwelling, that shifts the entire trajectory of their case. This episode deepens the emotional and spiritual stakes of the investigation, blending crime procedural tension with the cultural and psychological layers that have made the series such a standout. A case that refuses to stay buried. Lt. Joe Leaphorn, played with quiet gravitas by Zan McLarnon, begins the episode troubled, not just by the mounting evidence, but by the subtle inconsistencies that suggest something larger at play. What once appeared to be an isolated act of violence now hints at conspiracy, deception, and perhaps ritual undertones. Leaphorn has always approached his work with patience and precision. But here, his instincts tell him the truth is being obscured deliberately. Someone is covering tracks, and someone else may already be dead. Jim Chee, Kiowa Gordon, is more restless. Younger, eager, and still wrestling with his own place between tradition and modern law enforcement, Chee pushes for direct action. He believes a missing link in the investigation may lie beyond the usual suspects, somewhere remote and forgotten. Bernadette Manuelito, Jessica Madden, finds herself caught between them, grounded like Leaphorn, but sharing Chee's urgency. Her intuition has proven right before, and once again, she senses that something about the timeline doesn't add up. Together, the trio follow a thin thread of evidence that leads them miles into isolated terrain, to a solitary Hogan. The Hogan, sacred space turned crime scene. For viewers unfamiliar with Navajo culture, a Hogan is not simply a house. It is a spiritual space, a place of harmony, ceremony, and protection. So when Leaphorn, Chee, and Manuelito approach the structure and sense something wrong, the tension is palpable. The door is slightly ajar. The air inside is still. And then comes the horrifying discovery: a body. The scene is handled with restraint, yet it lands with devastating weight. The victim's presence inside a sacred structure immediately complicates the investigation. This is no random act. Whoever left the body here understood exactly what it would mean. Leaphorn's reaction is subtle but powerful. This is more than a homicide. It is a violation, a web of motives. As the team processes the scene, clues begin to emerge. The body shows signs of struggle, but there are also ritualistic elements, objects placed deliberately, symbols drawn in ash. The episode carefully avoids sensationalism, instead grounding the mystery in psychological tension. Chee theorizes that the staging could be meant to mislead them, to suggest something spiritual when the motive may be financial or personal. Manuelito, however, notices something overlooked. The positioning of the body mirrors an earlier case file from years ago. A pattern. Leaphorn doesn't dismiss either possibility. But his experience tells him the killer wants them confused. And confusion can be deadly. The weight of leadership. Throughout the episode, Leaphorn struggles with more than the case. His leadership is under quiet pressure, from superiors who want quick results and from community members shaken by fear. A death in a Hogan spreads faster than wildfire through word of mouth. Rumors begin to swirl. Some whisper about curses. Others blame outside influences. Leaphorn knows the truth will require delicate balance. He must protect his people not only from violence, but from panic. McLarnon's performance here is masterful, every pause, every glance carrying the burden of a man who understands both law and lore. Chee's conflict deepens. Chee's arc in this episode is particularly compelling. His background, part traditional, part modern, has always placed him between worlds. The discovery in the Hogan forces him to confront questions he's avoided. Is this case purely criminal? Or is there something symbolic at work? Chee consults an elder quietly, seeking perspective. The conversation is understated but significant. The elder reminds him that fear can distort truth, and that not everything cloaked in ritual is sacred. This advice lingers with Chee as he revisits the crime scene in his mind. Manuelito's sharp eye. Jessica Madden's Manuelito continues to shine as the steady pulse of the team. While the men debate motive and symbolism, she digs into tangible evidence: tire tracks near the Hogan, fibers caught on rough wood, inconsistencies in alibis. Her investigative instincts uncover a breakthrough, a connection between the victim and a local businessman with a history of shady dealings. The Hogan may have been chosen not for spiritual reasons, but for isolation. That revelation shifts the investigation dramatically. The turning point. Midway through the episode, the trio confront the businessman. The tension crackles as he deflects, lawyer at his side, claiming coincidence. But Leaphorn senses fear, not guilt, fear. Under pressure, the man reveals something shocking. He received threats too. Anonymous notes referencing balance and restoration. Suddenly, the case widens. This isn't about one victim. Someone is targeting specific individuals. And the Hogan was just the beginning. Themes of violation and restoration. Dark Winds has always excelled at weaving cultural themes into its mysteries. This episode explores the idea of balance, what happens when it is broken, and how it can be restored. The Hogan symbolizes harmony. Placing death inside it symbolizes disruption. But who seeks restoration, and by what means? Leaphorn privately wonders if the killer sees themselves as delivering justice. If so, that makes them even more dangerous. A quietly devastating final scene. As dusk falls, the team revisits the Hogan one last time. Forensics have cleared the body, but the weight remains. Leaphorn stands in the doorway, the wind rising. He removes his hat, not as an officer, but as a man acknowledging loss. Chee and Manuelito stand beside him, united not just as colleagues, but as protectors of something larger than a case file. The episode ends without easy answers. The killer remains at large. The pattern remains incomplete, but the stakes have never been clearer. Why this episode matters. This chapter of Dark Winds stands out because it does more than advance a mystery. It deepens character, explores cultural violation with respect, and reminds viewers that crime stories are never just about catching a culprit. The discovery in the Hogan changes everything. It transforms a procedural investigation into a moral reckoning, one that will ripple through future episodes. Leaphorn must confront not just a killer, but the possibility that someone within the community believes violence is justified. Chee must reconcile belief and evidence. Manuelito must continue proving that clarity often comes from observation, not assumption. And viewers are left with a lingering sense of unease, the kind that only Dark Winds can deliver. What's next? With the investigation now pointing toward a calculated campaign rather than a single act, the trio faces increasing danger. If the killer is staging deaths to send messages, who will be next? And will the next message be even more devastating? One thing is certain, the winds are shifting. And they carry secrets that refuse to stay buried.